they don't dare tell you the truth about the 4th of July. This is Tom Woods. And he says, in school we were told no taxation without representation. And that reminds me, we used to always go to Colonial Williamsburg when we lived in North Carolina. We loved to go there and here in the mountains. And we would go up there. It was fascinating to watch it. And they had people who were doing trades, building trades, making their own bricks, cutting their own raw lumber from, trees that they've done, and then building period piece buildings. And you could go around and you could just talk to them and they would talk to you normally. They had other people who were reenactors who would talk to you as if they were the character or if they were somebody who was living there at the time. But most of the people who were involved in trades would just straight out talk to you. And so we'd walk around, we'd look at that, and we'd even do some of the other stuff, but it just was so woke. It's run by the Rockefeller Foundation. And even 20, 25 years ago, they were just already horrible. So for the most part, I'd take the kids up, and I would give them the history lesson while we looked at the physical stuff. And I remember they would have, at the courthouse, they had a group out there and said, so what was the revolution about? I knew they wanted to hear somebody say, no taxation without representation. What was their issue with taxes? And so I shouted out, I knew they weren't going to like this. I shouted out, taxation is theft. And the person was like, what? It's kind of like when I shouted out about Silverstein and Building 7 to a tour group in New York. But it's like, what? Well, no, that's not it. I said, but it is theft. But anyway, no, but it's gone beyond, taxation without representation. As I've said many times, it's now regulation without representation as well. And that's all due to our bureaucratic government. You want to talk about swarms of officers who harass our people and eat out their substance? That is the bureaucratic state. Unelected, unaccountable. And it's worse and far more pervasive than anything that the British ever did. It is everywhere. And so he said, no taxation without representation, but he said the real principles were more like the following: no legislation without representation. And it's not legislation, it's regulation, because it's coming from the regulatory agencies. It's not law. We've got to understand, and we need to make this distinction, that stuff that is put out there by the regulatory agencies is not law, because they make that distinction and they use it to deny us our due process. They say, well, we would have to have, you would have to be presumed innocent and you'd have to have due process and all the rest of the stuff if it were a law. But it's not a law. It's a regulation. So we don't have to do any of that stuff. We find you guilty and we fine you. And in order to stop that, you have to prove your innocence. And there is no protection against excessive fines as well. I've talked about this many times, so I won't go any further into it. Then there was this piece from Esquire, Charles Pierce. This year, he says, I'm just not in the mood for life, liberty, and all that. All that. The thing, as Joe Biden said. So he said in his article, he begins by saying, on July 4th, 1821, then Secretary of State John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams, was asked to deliver a speech to the House of Representatives to celebrate the day. That was a speech in which he said, America does not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. And I thought, okay, well, that's something here. At least this guy from Esquire understands that, because we've lost that, right? Now, that's all we do. That is the raison d'etre for our so-called Defense Department. Let's go everywhere searching for monsters we can destroy. But no, he doesn't talk about that. This guy's a hardcore leftist. He doesn't care about peace. He doesn't care about military adventurism and endless war. But he says, he quotes from the speech where John Quincy Adams says, America in the Assembly of Nations, since her admission among them, has invariably, though often fruitlessly, held forth to them the hand of honest friendship, of equal freedom, of generous reciprocity. But that's not the way we are today. Now, we are an American empire which seeks to bully people into submission and seeks to establish wars everywhere for profit because it is such a profitable enterprise. And so then he talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And he takes this approach, this liberal from Esquire. He says, life, he's not talking about abortion. He talks about gun control. We can't do anything about the carnage ensuing from the country's insane affection for firearms. No, he doesn't care about abortion, does he? Well, maybe instead of, maybe the pro-life people ought to start a movement to ban forceps, you think? Maybe we should ban forceps, a tool of abortion. Guns are just a tool. And like forceps, guns can be used to save life or they can be used to rip people apart. But that doesn't seem to get through to a liberal who doesn't think when people say the right to life, abortion doesn't even connect to him. Then he talks about liberty. And you would think, well, he's a writer. Is he going to talk about censorship and free speech and things like that? No, he's not going to talk about that. He said, this is a word that's been twisted beyond all reckoning. Moms for Liberty quotes Hitler. Well, what they did was they put a quote there, and Hitler has said it. Every authoritarian government has said it. Plato said it, that if you get a child at an early age, you can mold them for the rest of life. But you can look at that as positive or negative. And just because they unfortunately chose the wording of Hitler doesn't mean that they're Hitler supporters. It means that they understand that, and it would have been better for them, Moms for Liberty, they should have gone with the age-old quote, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. That's what Moms for Liberty should have gone to. But I guess maybe they're too feminist to want to talk about that. Oh, we don't want to really be mothers in the sense, right? But he took that out of context, and it's become a liberal trope to take that out of context for Moms for Liberty. Look, going back to King Solomon in Proverbs, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. People have always understood how important it is, early education in terms of developing character, or in terms of making somebody a monster. And then he goes on to the pursuit of happiness. Now, what does he focus on with that? Well, he focuses on the fact that our gay and trans fellow citizens are under attack. And I thought, oh, we got a new definition for pursuit of happiness. Gay always meant happy. And so I guess this is now about the pursuit of gayness or the pursuit of LGBT agenda. I guess that's now our new definition for the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of LGBT depravity and the gay lifestyle. Yeah, that's got to be it. Just wait. I'm going to take credit for this if they start saying that next year. The pursuit of gayness instead of the pursuit of happiness. Because it has become our new flag. And it is our new religion, our state religion. In a polarized U.S., how do we define patriot? Asked the Associated Press. And of course, the Associated Press is always redefining words. They have a script, they have essentially a dictionary or whatever of speech rules that they have for journalists. If you want the Associated Press to pass along your story, and that's very important for journalists, you got to use their approved terms. You will not say things like anchor baby. You'll not say things like illegal alien or any of that other stuff. You'll not say pro-life. You will say anti-abortion rights, according to the Associated Press. So now the Associated Press gets onto the term patriot. And they can't seem to define the term. They skate around it. And they try to come up with some subjective term for patriot. And then, of course, they want to make it into a dangerous, evil thing. That's the Associated Press. So first, they pretend they don't know where it came from. Then they push it into being evil. So they say, yeah, we got different versions of patriot. Here we are, because we just redefine the words, and nothing actually ever means anything, and there is no truth, and We don't know where this word came from, although they do point out that, well, it comes from a Greek word. But let's not talk about that. No, this is postmodernism, or as I said yesterday, it is post-objectivity, post-history, post all the rest of the stuff. We can't look at how things came to be, why they are there. There isn't any truth, so why even bother? We're just going to tell you what to think. Today, they said the word and its variants, patriot, have morphed beyond the original meaning. It's become infused with political rhetoric and school curriculums and varying definitions, while being appropriated by white nationalist groups. Trying to define what a patriot is depends on who is being asked. Again, there is no truth to anything. It's all relative, and it's what you think. While the word's origins come from ancient Greece, it is somebody who loves his or her country, they said. Well, where does it come from in ancient Greece? What was that word? It was patriots, Patrits. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it the way they would say it, but it sounds essentially the same. What did that mean? Patriots or something. It meant fatherland. That's why we talk about the founding fathers. It's one of the reasons why they won't talk about that. Because it is patriot is the same as patriarchy. They hate patriarchy. They hate rule by fathers. They want matriarchy, rule by mothers, which is, of course, superior. They hate anything that is reeks of maleness. But that was the reality. The fatherland, patriots, your country. And so they said, these people who took part in the American Revolution, they were working people who were advocating for their voices to be heard in the political process. Is that what these guys sound? Is that what Jefferson and Adams and Franklin and these guys sound like to you? They were advocating for their voices to be heard in the political process? No, they were acting like men. They were acting like providers and protectors. They were acting like founding fathers. The role of a man is protector, provider, patriarch. And they took that upon themselves. They took action to provide for their posterity. The hearts of the fathers were turned toward their children and their grandchildren on beyond that. And that is the hallmark of a thriving society that has the will to survive, and you won't see any trace of that in modern America. None whatsoever. So they go on and say, patriotism really depends on which American is describing himself as patriotic and which version or vision of the country they hold dear, said a historian at Dartmouth, which is another reason you don't want to go to college, especially the Ivy League colleges. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.